So welcome, we're here with Chad Embry from Fujikura Composites. So been just a great year, 2 years, great period for Fujikura in terms of product-wise. The Ventus, as everyone knows, has been so successful. That Velocore material, the development of that product in the TR, it's just such a recognisable product out on tour, but as we see in the studio, the consistency of that product's been unbelievable. And so I guess for those that don't know so much about the product, the Velocore material, that's really the key to its performance.
Absolutely.
What is it about that? What is it that you managed to develop with that material that has led to the success of that product?
Well, if you haven't heard about Ventus, you need to get out from under the rock that you're living in.
This is true.
Like you mentioned, we've had tremendous success. We launched Ventus in 2019, and since 2019, it's hard to keep the shaft on the shelves. If there was any complaint, and I use that word softly, from tour players, it was they wanted a little bit firmer handle, and so that's why we introduced the TR. So now the Ventus line gives you 6 different launch options. They're not drastically or woefully higher or lower than one or another. They're all tour-oriented launches. So now we have 6 different options, which is great, and the sales continue to be through the roof, and the performance obviously drives that.
Yeah.
What makes that what it is exactly what you said, the Velocore technology. So that's a multi-material bias core, which goes full length on the inside of the shaft. It's made of high modulus materials, pitch 70 and 40 ton. All that being shaft speak. What that does is that brings you through the impact area more steady, right? And so you have less off-center hits. And what it also does is it allows the miss or off-center hits to go straighter than what they would traditionally do. So we all know we're not tour pros. You take your swipes, you're not going to hit that center most times. But if you're a little off, what that's going to do is keep the distance more consistent, and it's also going to keep you in the fairway rather than putting you in the crap on the left or right side. So the Velocore technology has been a world saver for us. Our engineers work so hard on that stuff with new materials all the time, and so hopefully you'll see some new stuff coming out down the road.
I think in the studio what we see is I think the key to a good shaft is consistency of performance. No matter who's using it, you know what you're going to get, rather than it being wonderful for one player and then really dead average for another. It's you know what the product's going to do, which to me is always that standout of, right, that's a product that really is top grade, because it's not I say player specific. It's not something that you can only put in some players' hands and expect to see a certain result. It can carry across the board.
Yeah, I agree, and that's good to hear. I mean, we like to hear
work.
from you guys, right? You guys are the fitters, and you guys are the ones that are on the front lines for us every day. Like we make the product, which is only a small part of what can be done. It takes guys like yourself and your shop that gets it out there and puts it in people's hands, and then once they see how it works, then word spreads, and heck, we all have a good time.
And so, moving on to, you've got the Motore, Motore X line, F1, F3, F1 being the more stout, tip stable, lower launch, F3 mid launch, and that's a product that stays in line as the Vista Pro through this year.
Absolutely. So the Motore, it's funny, once, and this should be kind of worldwide, no matter what industry you're in, right? If you come out with a technology that works and is proven, and you can see it on the front line, then we kind of transcend that down our product line, right? So with the pitch 70 being one of the most expensive materials on the planet to get your hands on, well, I mean, excluding raw mining materials or whatnot, but as far as graphite, 40-ton material being another expensive material, that's our high-end product in the marketplace, right? That's what goes for tour. Well, we wanted to share that technology throughout our entire line. You don't want to capture that and say, well, screw that, we're not going to use something that's proven in our lower end products. Motore, which is a mid-price point product, $225 MSRP, we've taken that and just changed the materials, but still use a little bit of that Velocore technology. So it's a multi-material bias core. It goes all the way up and down the entire shaft, but we just lessen the material. So the functionality behind it still works in accordance with what we designed for the Velocore, but it's in the Motore shaft. And it's kind of it doesn't get enough props for being what it is. It's out on tour, it's played throughout the aftermarket with a lot of varying skill and handicap levels. And then we also did it with the Vista Pro. We redesigned the Vista Pro a couple years ago.
That's such a successful line.
It honestly is.
Well.
Yeah, it's the workhorse. I mean, honestly, the price point's great. It covers 40 gram up to 70 gram, R3 Flex, which is our ladies flex, up to X Flex. So, in all honesty, if you have a player come in, you could fit anybody. I mean, you could fit literally the single digit or even plus handicap all the way to the old lady that comes in and wants to hit better shots. So we've put it in everything we have to some degree. And so when you have a good technology, you share it amongst the family of shafts.
Bit of a tech check for you, bias core. So what is bias core? Just because obviously we mentioned it a few times, but just to explain to the audience.
A tech check. A tech check. So that is
thought that a moment ago.
That is the inner core of the shaft, and it's on the bias, right? So when you put down carbon material in a shaft, you can either go longitudinally, which is a flexural rigidity. You can go at a 45, which is torsional rigidity, and then you can do hoop strength or a 0 degree around the shaft. So when you say bias core, you're on the bias and it's full length. And so when you have extremely strong materials going at the bias, you reduce torque and you reduce twisting and you keep it more stable to the impact area, which goes back to more consistent shots.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. In terms of products, there are developments the whole time. There are going to be some products launching later this year that we can't talk about quite yet. But anything for kind of future that you can allude to in some shape or form?
Yeah, I can soft step around this. I don't want to be fired. I've enjoyed my time at Fujikura. Thank you, Fujikura. So we obviously have this technology that's proven to work in driver, fairway wood, and hybrid. Neither confirm nor deny, but it would be nice to put this technology in maybe an iron shaft. So if you have success, with that driver, that 3-wood, that hybrid, it's just a natural progression to come out with something that can complete your bag, right? So,
in terms of utilizing that when you're transitioning from wood, whether it's driver or fairway specific, if you do that hybrid into iron, utilizing that kind of material, how differently have you got to look at the shaft when it's looking at, say, an iron? Obviously the head weight's massively different. You've got to have different, because of the down angle attack, striking the ground, all those sort of elements come into it. How differently do you have to look at the material, and maybe do you adapt the material at all? Is it more how it's used within the shaft as you transition from one part of the bag to another? Because you can't just go, okay, we'll just shorten it.
100%. That's design, right? That's 101 design in graphite shafts. We don't design a driver shaft the same way we design an iron shaft, but the core of how you start and finish with an iron shaft as opposed to a driver shaft still stays the same. So when our engineers say, hey, we have a material, a technology that works very well, they have, I guess you'd call it the skeleton design of iron shafts. So you don't just take it and go, boom, make it shorter and we'll go. You don't cut off 2 inches on this side and 4 inches and say, stick it in. So to answer your question loosely, there's obviously a difference when you design that product. But they have that to start with, right? So we have in-house design software proprietarily made by our engineers that we can pump in the material where it is, how much we want of it, what the layup process is, and we can actually have that computer generate specs based on what we throw into it before we ever make a shaft.
And I guess that must be the difference now, is having that backup of whether you call it AI or the sort of CADs or the design, the computer-generated design side of things, to know, right, if we put that material there on the shaft, if we change it this way, it gives a very strong, if not a very accurate prediction of what it's likely to do. So you can say, okay, well, that's a good idea or a bad idea without having to make a load of them.
Absolutely, and that's, you hit it on the head. I mean, right? So it's time, it's money, it's material. It's machinery. So we do have a very accurate way of predicting specifications before they come out. So if our engineers sit down with our tour guys and say, okay, we want a 1.8 iron shaft, right? We want it to play stiff in the tip, soft in the butt. We make that computer generated. We look at that. The computer comes to us and says, okay, this is what you're going to get. We can make those design changes just on your computer screen before we send it back to our technicians that roll, cut. It's a lot of waste of time if you have to make 10 iterations physically rather than doing it computer generated. So it saves us a lot of time.
And so Fujikura are one of, if not the only, one of very few companies that have that kind of ability in terms of, because of the materials you use, the design team, the linear nature of the company. Very few in industry who can do that.
I would say there aren't any. I don't know that, so just side note. In case I'm wrong, I apologize ahead of time. So this is a proprietary software, right? This is something that our engineer, Alex D, who is the best of any shaft engineer. He's been there for 25 years. He's made some of the best shafts that we play today, including Ventus. Yeah, it's a proprietary software that he created specifically in-house, so I don't understand how someone else could get it. Now, if they have something similar, you know, and even going off tangent here, but I figure we'll go for it anyway. We have proprietary, what we call a rack machine that tests the breakage of a shaft 360 degrees at a very fast clip. So traditionally, when durability was tested at an OEM or another shaft company, you do Canon testing. Well, Canon testing has some inherent flaws. Depending on where you glue that in and rotate, you could miss a breakable section of the shaft just based on luck, and then it takes all day to test these things. I can test the durability of a shaft in 10 minutes, and I can tell you if this thing is 360 up and down, great. We have a proprietary machine that tests EI of a shaft. In fact, the rack, going back real quick, we have sold to many of the OEMs, so that's now becoming a standard inside OEMs. So again, we're a shaft company first and foremost. That's what we do. That's what we love to do. But when you're making these products, there are other ways to enhance, save time, to make better our industry as a whole. And so, yes, we're a shaft company. That's what we pride ourselves on. But we're also trying to make it a better shaft company for everybody, right? If other people can get benefit out of this, test product better, make sure it's more durable, then we win all the way around. So I don't think there's another shaft company that comes close. But I do work for Fujikura.
Well, yeah. That's
So,
understandable.
take it with a grain of salt.
But again, heritage of Fuji and the success over the years, the continuation of the line, you go from Speed or on to Ventus, that there's a very, very consistent history of success and quality products. So some great insights from Chad, explanations of the shaft manufacturing process and what goes into it. Hope you managed to learn, enjoyed that, and we'll see you soon.